In 2014, the United Nations made an announcement. At current rates of soil degradation, all of the world's topsoil could be gone within 60 years. 60 harvests? That is all we have left. 24 billion tons of fertile soil disappearing every single year. 40% of agricultural land already degraded. Some areas have lost 70% of their topsoil, gone, washed away, blown into the wind. But here is what they did not tell you. During World War II, British families grew 40% of their own food in the same soil for 6 years straight without synthetic fertilizers, without chemical pesticides, without any of the inputs we now consider essential. And the soil got better, not worse, better. Millions of victory gardens across Britain and America, exposed to intensive cropping year after year, and the soil remained fertile, productive, alive. Today, modern farms cannot maintain fertility for 3 years without constant chemical inputs. The soil dies, the yields drop. The farmers add more chemicals, the cycle continues. What did World War II gardeners know that we have forgotten? This is the story of how we abandoned the farming knowledge that sustained humanity for 8,000 years, and why that knowledge might be the only thing that saves us from the 60-year countdown. Number 1. The modern crisis. Let us start with the numbers. The United States Midwest has lost 57.6 billion tons of topsoil since large-scale farming began. 160 years of agriculture, billions of tons of fertility. Gone, 1/3 of the Corn Belt has lost its entire horizon. That is the topsoil layer. The dark, rich layer, where plants actually grow. In some of America's most productive farmland, it no longer exists. Iowa alone has lost an average of 6.8 inches of topsoil since 1856 inches. That took nature thousands of years to create. We destroyed it in less than 2 centuries. Globally, soil is eroding 10 to 40 times faster than it can naturally regenerate. Here is what that means. It takes approximately 1,000 years for nature to create 1 inch of topsoil. 1,000 years of decomposition. Of microorganisms, of worms and fungi and bacteria breaking down organic matter into the black gold that grows our food. We are using it faster than the planet can make it. Modern conventional farms average 3.5% organic matter in their soil. Some have 2%, some have less. In 1940, Victory Garden soil commonly had 8% organic matter. 10%, some plots reached 12%. The difference between 3% and 12% is not a small number. It is the difference between soil that is dying and soil that is alive. Number 2, the chemical revolution. He figured out how to pull nitrogen from the air and turn it into ammonia. Nitrogen, the element that plants need most, the element that limits growth in almost every farm field on Earth. And it broke agriculture. Before 1913, farmers had to work with nature to get nitrogen into their soil. They rotated crops. They planted legumes that pulled nitrogen from the atmosphere and fixed it into the ground. They composted. They spread manure. They let fields rest. After 1913, they could buy nitrogen in a bag. Synthetic fertilizer changed everything. Farmers no longer needed healthy soil. They just needed chemistry. Add nitrogen, add phosphorus, add potassium. The famous NPK plants grow, harvest, repeat. But here's what the chemists did not understand. Plants are not just chemical equations. Soil is not just a medium to hold roots in place. There is an entire universe beneath our feet. Billions of bacteria, miles of fungal networks, microscopic organisms that have been feeding plants for millions of years. Synthetic fertilizers bypass this system entirely. They feed the plant directly. The soil microbiome becomes unnecessary. And when something becomes unnecessary, it dies. Long-term chemical fertilizer use destroys the ecological balance of soil microorganisms. The bacteria disappear, the fungi collapse. The soil becomes sterile, dead, and dead soil cannot feed plants without more chemicals. Number 3. World War II, the last organic era. World War II arrived at a strange moment in agricultural history. Synthetic fertilizers existed. They were proven. Farmers knew they worked, but during wartime, they were expensive. Scarce, factories that made ammonia were making explosives instead. Britain faced a crisis. German submarines were sinking supply ships. Food imports dropped by half. The island nation that had relied on global trade was suddenly cut off. Millions of people needed to eat, and there was not enough food. The government launched the Dig for Victory campaign. Every family with a garden was told to grow vegetables. Parks were converted to farmland, lawns became potato fields, window boxes grew tomatoes, but these new gardeners could not rely on chemical fertilizers. The supply simply was not there. They had to use the old methods, the methods their grandparents had used, the methods humanity had used for 8,000 years: composting, manure, crop rotation, green manure, kitchen scraps, and it worked. By 1943, Victory Gardens were producing 40% of Britain's vegetables. Millions of amateur gardeners growing food in soil they had built themselves. Without chemicals, without synthetic inputs, without the industrial agriculture we now consider essential. This was the last great experiment in organic farming before chemicals took over completely. And the results proved something important. You do not need synthetic fertilizers to grow food. You need living soil. Number 4. The composting method. In March 1945, the British Ministry of Agriculture published official composting instructions, not suggestions. Official government guidance on how to turn waste into fertility. The title was simple: Food for your garden, from your garden. Here is what they told families to use: leaves, grass cuttings, straw, lawn mowings, the stems and leaves of peas and beans and potatoes after harvest, vegetable tops, hedge clippings, weeds, faded flowers, any plant material not needed for feeding animals. Here is what they told families to avoid: cinders, paper, coal, ashes, thick woody stems, sawdust, anything contaminated with oil or tar or poison, diseased plant material. The process was systematic. Step 1. Choose a shaded site on ground not used for cropping. Make it 4 to 7 feet wide. Step 2. Layer vegetable refuse 6 to 9 inches deep. If dry, add water and pack it down. If green and wet, leave it loose. Step 3. Cover with a 2-inch layer of animal manure. Horse, cow, pig, chicken, rabbit, whatever you have. If you had no animals, the government provided alternatives. Step 4. Repeat the layers until your heap is 3 to 5 feet tall. Step 5. Add lime or ground limestone every foot or so to balance acidity. Step 6. Wait for the heap to heat up and cool down. Then turn it. Move the outside material to the middle. Move the middle to the outside. The result was dark, rich compost, humus, the foundation of soil fertility. This was not primitive farming. This was biochemistry, controlled decomposition. The same process nature uses, accelerated and managed. Number 5. The pig bins. During World War II, Britain had pig bins on nearly every street corner. Large metal containers where families deposited kitchen scraps, potato peels, vegetable trimmings, leftover bread, anything edible that would otherwise go to waste. The pigmen came regularly. They collected the scraps, cooked them into swill, fed them to pigs. The pigs converted kitchen waste into meat. The pig manure went to farms and gardens. The cycle closed perfectly. Nothing left the system. Everything returned to the soil eventually. The Imperial War Museums still have the posters. Save kitchen waste to feed the pigs. Keep it dry. Keep it free from glass and metal and bones. Here is the remarkable part. This practice is now illegal in most countries. Food safety laws prohibit feeding kitchen waste to livestock. Disease concerns, contamination risks, reasonable precautions that have an unintended consequence. The circular nutrient system that fed Britain during its darkest hour no longer exists. Kitchen waste goes to landfills. Nutrients that could rebuild soil are buried under plastic. The cycle is broken. We made it illegal to do what our grandparents did naturally. Number 6. Crop rotation. The Ministry of Agriculture had one piece of advice they repeated constantly: never grow the same crop in the same ground year after year. This is crop rotation, and it is one of the oldest farming techniques in human history. The ministry recommended a 3-year system. Split your garden into thirds, move crops through each section in sequence. Year 1, legumes, peas, and beans. These plants do something remarkable. They pull nitrogen from the air and fix it into the soil through bacteria in their roots. They leave the ground richer than they found it. Year 2, heavy feeders, potatoes, cabbage, crops that need lots of nutrients. They use the nitrogen the legumes deposited. Year 3, root vegetables, carrots, parsnips, crops with lighter nutrient demands. Then the cycle repeats. The ministry explained why this mattered. First, rotation ensures every part of your plot gets proper cultivation at regular intervals. Second, it maintains plant food and humus throughout the entire garden. Third, different crops need different care at different times. This helps control weeds. Fourth, pests and diseases that attack one crop cannot build up in the soil. They starve when their host plant moves away. Modern industrial agriculture abandoned rotation. Monoculture is more efficient. Grow corn every year, same field. Add chemicals to replace what the corn takes out. The result is soil that cannot function without constant inputs. Exactly what the 1945 ministry warned against. Number 7. Green manure. World War II gardeners had another technique that modern farmers are only now rediscovering. Green manure, the concept is simple. Plant a crop specifically to plow it back into the soil. Wartime gardeners planted red clover in July. It grew through autumn, survived the winter. In spring, 6 weeks before planting their main crops, they would mow the clover, hoe the roots, leave everything to rot in place. The decomposing clover became organic matter, food for soil microorganisms. The roots had already fixed nitrogen from the air. Now the leaves and stems added carbon. Other green manure crops included winter rye, mustard, any fast-growing plant that could cover bare ground and then be turned under. The key insight was this: soil should never be bare. Bare soil erodes, rain washes it away, wind blows it away, sun bakes it hard. The microorganisms that live in the top few inches die without the protection of plant cover. Green manure solved this problem. It covered the ground during fallow periods, protected the soil, then fed it when incorporated. Nature never leaves soil bare. Neither did wartime gardeners. Number 8. The nutrient connection. In 2022, researchers published a study comparing regenerative farms to conventional farms across the United States. The findings should change how we think about food. Regenerative farms, the ones using composting, cover crops, and diverse rotations. The methods World War II gardeners used: these farms had 3 to 12% soil organic matter, average 6.3%. Conventional farms, the ones using synthetic fertilizers and monoculture, these farms had 2 to 5% soil organic matter, average 3.5%. But here is what matters most. The crops from regenerative farms had 34% more vitamin K, 15% more vitamin E, 17% more vitamin B2, 20% more total phenolics. These are the compounds that prevent chronic disease. Regenerative crops had 11% more calcium, 16% more phosphorus, 27% more copper. The researchers concluded something profound. Soil health is an underappreciated influence on nutrient density. The food is only as nutritious as the soil it grows in. Dead soil produces deficient food. Living soil produces nutritious food. Your great-grandmother's vegetables were not more nutritious because of some nostalgic fantasy. They were more nutritious because her soil was alive, because she fed the ground that fed her family. We broke that connection, and our health shows it. Number 9. The forgotten lessons. What did World War II gardeners understand that we have forgotten? They understood that soil is not dirt. Soil is alive. It contains more organisms in a single handful than there are people on Earth. These organisms are not optional. They are essential. They understood that waste does not exist in nature. Everything cycles. Kitchen scraps become pig food. Pig manure becomes compost. Compost becomes vegetables. Vegetables become kitchen scraps. The loop closes. They understood that chemistry is not a substitute for biology. You can force plants to grow with synthetic fertilizers, but you cannot force soil to live. And dead soil eventually produces dead harvests. They understood that diversity creates resilience. Rotation prevents pest buildup. Cover crops prevent erosion. Multiple systems working together outperform any single solution. They understood patience. Compost takes months to mature. Soil organic matter builds over years. Fertility is not instant. It is inherited. These were not primitive farmers stumbling through ignorance. These were people applying thousands of years of accumulated wisdom under desperate circumstances. And they fed a nation. 60 years of harvests left. That is the warning. That is the countdown we are living under. But the solution is not mysterious. It is not hidden. It is not waiting to be invented. The solution was practiced by millions of ordinary families during World War II. Composting kitchen scraps, rotating crops, planting cover crops, returning organic matter to the soil, feeding the ground that feeds us. These methods sustained human agriculture for 8,000 years before we abandoned them for chemistry. They can sustain us again. The question is not whether we know how to rebuild soil. We do. The wartime guides still exist. The science confirms what traditional farmers always knew. The question is whether we will act before the 60-year countdown reaches zero. Your great-grandmother knew how to keep soil alive. She did it without a chemistry degree, without government subsidies, without expensive inputs. She did it because she understood something we have forgotten. The soil is not a resource to be mined. It is a living system to be fed. We have 60 years to remember that lesson. The clock is already running.